After the decline of the once mighty Ghana Empire, a new force emerged, destined to reshape West Africa. This was the Mali Empire, a realm synonymous with wealth, trade, and military might. At its height, Mali encompassed vast territories, including present-day Senegal, Gambia, Mauritania, and Niger. The empire dominated the lucrative gold and salt trade, opening new copper mines in Keita to strengthen its economy further. However, history often presents us with the splendor of Mali: golden caravans, magnificent Timbuktu, and its fabled wealth, while neglecting the intricate tale of its origins, often due to a Eurocentric historical perspective that prioritizes later colonial periods and written records over oral traditions. We seldom hear of the grueling battles, the political upheavals, and the strategic brilliance that forged this empire from the embers of war. Through the rich oral traditions of the Mandinka people, preserved by generations of griots, such as the renowned Djeli Mamadou Kouyaté, we uncover a deeper narrative, one of heroism, strategy, and statecraft. These oral historians meticulously pass down the epic of Sundiata Keita, ensuring that the trials and triumphs of Mali's founders remained alive across centuries. This is the story of the rise of the Mali Empire, a saga of warriors charging across vast plains, naval expeditions charting mighty rivers, and skilled archers bringing down fortified citadels. Beyond its military conquests, the empire thrived on formidable institutions and groundbreaking governance, laying the foundation for one of the most influential powers of its age. The origins of the Mandinka kingdom stretch as far back as 1050 AD under the rule of Baramandana, often recognized as its first Islamic king. Some of his successors, such as Musa Keita in 1110 AD, embraced Islam and incorporated its teachings into governance. However, some historians argue that the Keita dynasty, which would later lead the empire, had even earlier roots, possibly tracing back to the 9th century, with Kabala Simbo Keita as its founder. As with all rising kingdoms, Mandinka was not free from threats. The 13th century brought devastation when Sumanguru Kante, the fearsome ruler of the Soso Empire, launched a ruthless attack on Kangaba, the Mandinka capital. His forces burned the city to the ground, executing 11 princes, leaving only one survivor, the crippled Prince Sundiata Keita. But fate had other plans. Overcoming his disability, Sundiata would rise to become a warrior, uniting the fragmented Mandinka kingdoms against the Soso. He waged a brilliant guerrilla campaign, conquering strategic regions such as Sangaran, Labe, and the Niger River territories. By 1235 AD, the decisive Battle of Kirina saw Sundiata and his allies crush the Soso army, slaying Sumanguru Kante and leaving his kingdom leaderless. With victory secured, Sundiata wasted no time consolidating power. His army swiftly took over the remaining Soso territories, storming the capital, burning it to the ground, and annihilating any lingering opposition. Other cities, such as Dia and Keita, surrendered with less resistance, recognizing the inevitability of Mandinka dominance. To solidify his rule, Sundiata called a grand assembly of nobles and established the Kurukan Fuga, a constitution of 44 edicts governing society, property rights, environmental policies, and personal responsibilities. Though historians often refer to his domain as the Mali Empire, the Mandinka people called it the Manden Kurafaba, translating to the Mandinka Federation, a name reflecting its decentralized system of governance. The Mali Empire was vast, but it was not ruled by an iron fist. Instead, it thrived on a delicate balance of autonomy and imperial control. Most territories remained self-governing kingdoms, their rulers free to govern as they pleased, so long as they recognized the Mansa's supreme authority and paid tribute. True imperial power was wielded at the provincial level, where the Mansa hand-picked or approved governors. Some of these were local rulers he trusted. Others were Faubus, imperial governors loyal only to the throne. This ensured that while distant lands enjoyed autonomy, the empire's core interests, gold, trade, and stability, remained firmly under Malian control. At the heart of governance stood the Gbara, the Mansa's great deliberative council. Formed from the 28 most powerful Mandinka clans, it was more than just an advisory body. It was the empire's engine of rule. 32 officials held portfolios spanning economy, justice, war, foreign affairs, and religion, each representing a pillar of Mandinka society. Of these, 16 were military leaders, responsible for commanding armies, protecting trade routes, and securing vital gold and salt mines. Some ruled volatile frontier provinces where rebellion or invasion was always a threat. 4 seats belonged to royalty, drawn from the imperial Keita dynasty and allied clans, ensuring that blood ties remained at the heart of power. 5 were spiritual leaders, reflecting Mali's religious diversity, while 7 seats were held by the empire's wealthiest merchants and industrial figures, ensuring the empire's economic pulse never wavered. Through this structured yet flexible system, Mali expanded its frontiers, securing trade routes and resource-rich lands. Power was carefully distributed, ensuring loyalty without stifling local rule. And as its dominion grew, so too did its wealth, turning Mali into a force that shaped the very heartbeat of West Africa. The wars of expansion that shaped the Mali Empire were fought by a military force that evolved from its Mandinka roots. The army that had won the empire numbered 23,000 strong, a formidable force led by the Mari, the overall field commander, and his 16 Tontigi, powerful clan leaders commanding elite heavy cavalry. These riders, 3,000 in number, formed the core of the army, supported by 5,000 disciplined spearmen and 15,000 skilled archers under Kalakun officers. But as Mali transformed into an empire, so did its military. With vast resources and greater manpower, its strength swelled to an astonishing 100,000 semi-professional troops, nearly 5 times its original size, reinforced by levies from conquered lands. At the helm stood the Mansa, supreme ruler of Mali. Beneath him, command was divided between 2 great generals, the Farim Sora, leading the northern armies, and the Sankar Zuma, commanding the south. The 16 Tontigi now held seats in the empire's ruling council, the Gbara, wielding both military and political power. Among the most elite warriors were the Faubus, great brave men who served as vassal lords and governors, and the Farima, brave men akin to European knights, commanding cavalry and retainers. Together, these Ferrari, or warrior nobles, formed a 10,000-strong force of heavily armed riders feared across the land. Yet, it was the infantry that formed the backbone of Mali's might. 70,000 to 90,000 warriors, predominantly archers, led by Kalakun captains. Their relentless volleys rained death upon enemies, securing victories before the cavalry struck the final blow. Beyond the battlefield, Mali's military reach extended further. Fortified garrisons, manned by freemen and slaves, safeguarded provinces, while a naval fleet emerged to dominate the empire's waterways. Hundreds of war canoes, some over 25 meters long, with crews of 100, these war canoes manned by skilled sailors and archers patrolled rivers and ferried troops, making the empire's military as fluid as it was fearsome. This was the machine that secured Mali's dominance, a force of raw power, intricate strategy, and relentless ambition. In the wake of Sundiata Keita's final victory over the Soso in 1235 AD, the Mali Empire stood on the brink of transformation. The war that had shattered Sumangaru's dominion was over, but the work of empire building had only just begun. With the northern sieges complete, Sundiata made a decisive move. He demobilized nearly a third of his army. The warriors who had marched at his side were now encouraged to lay down their weapons and turn to the land, becoming farmers and herders. This was not just a military decision, it was a vision. Stability and prosperity would be forged not only through conquest, but through economic and social renewal. From his new capital at Niani, nestled at the meeting of the upper Niger and Sankarani rivers, Sundiata ruled as emperor, but never again as a battlefield commander. The burden of expansion now rested on his most trusted generals, Fakoli Koroma, Fran Kamara, and Tiramakan Traore. Their campaigns would push westward, toward the gold fields and horse-rich lands that could further empower the empire. But history leaves us only fragments of their conquests, the details lost in time. What follows, then, is a reconstruction, a glimpse into the battles, struggles, and ambitions that would shape the destiny of Mali. Fakoli Koroma rode to war with a purpose: Bambuk. A land of rivers and mountains, its gold fields shimmered with untold wealth, a prize that could solidify Mali's dominance. To claim it, Fakoli led the formidable Koroma clan and a third of the empire's army, marching toward a region that had long resisted conquest. The invasion likely followed the lifeblood of the land, the upper branches of the Senegal River. War canoes, sleek and swift, cut through the waters, ferrying warriors who struck like lightning upon riverside settlements. On land, Mandinka heavy cavalry and fast-moving light troops advanced in unison, overwhelming their foes with precise, relentless force. But Bambuk was no easy prey. Its people had known war, had resisted their neighbors time and again. Perhaps they fought from the riverbanks, launching desperate counterattacks, or from the mountains, attempting to outmaneuver the invaders. Yet, the sheer power and discipline of Mali's forces proved unstoppable. One by one, the lowland defenses crumbled. In the aftermath, the empire wasted no time. Merchants, metalworkers, and tradesmen flooded in, eager to exploit the newly secured gold fields. Their toil would transform Bambuk into the beating heart of Mali's wealth, a cornerstone of an empire whose riches would echo across the world. The lands of the Mali Empire were vast, but security was never guaranteed. To the south, the towering highlands of Futa Djallon loomed, a fortress of nature itself. This rugged land of elevated plateaus, deep canyons, and jungle-choked valleys was a world apart. A bastion of defiance that would not bow easily. It was here, according to oral histories, that the warrior Fran of Clan Kamara led the charge. But this was no ordinary conquest. The swift, river-based warfare that had crushed other foes would not work in this broken, untamed terrain. Instead, the Mandinka turned to their greatest strength, their hunters, their archers, their masters of the land. For centuries, Mandinka hunter fraternities had defended their people, bound by an unbreakable brotherhood and sharpened by the relentless trials of the wilderness. In Futa Djallon, these warriors became the specters of the jungle, striking unseen, reigning supreme in a campaign of endurance and precision. The very skills that once protected their lands were now turned against their enemies. With each battle, the empire's grip tightened, not only securing the flank of its treasured gold fields, but also unlocking the wealth of Futa Djallon's forests. Exotic woods, rare spices, and other riches now flowed into Mali's dominion, further fueling its rise. As Mali's conquests pushed westward, tensions erupted with the rising Jolof kingdom, a formidable power controlling coastal trade routes. Seeking horses to strengthen his cavalry, Sundiata sent envoys to negotiate with the Jolof king. However, his envoys were not only scorned but executed, save for one survivor, sent back with an insult. Enraged, Sundiata declared war, dispatching his seasoned general Tiramakan Traore at the helm of 40,000 warriors. Marching westward, they swiftly conquered Bambuk, a critical buffer zone. The region's name, derived from a Mandinka term meaning those who were chased away, reflects the crushing nature of their defeat. After securing Bambuk, Tiramakan focused on stabilizing the land, delaying the main invasion for a year. Once ready, Mali's forces surged into Jolof, clashing with the kingdom's cavalry in a fierce battle. Oral traditions recount a decisive victory for Mali, culminating in the death of the Jolof king and the annexation of his territories. This conquest solidified Mali's dominance over the western trade routes and struck fear into rival states. With the conquest of Jolof, Tiramakan Traore pressed further, subduing new territories while the recently acquired lands were pacified and reorganized. But Mali's expansion was not won by the sword alone. Sundiata Keita, ever the strategist, used diplomacy and economic influence to cement his empire's control. By the time of his death in 1255 AD, Mali had grown far beyond the realm of the Soso Empire he had crushed. It now rivaled the legendary Ghana Empire, a dominion stretching across the gold-laden trade routes of West Africa. In the decades that followed, Sundiata's successors and generals built upon his legacy, extending Mali's reach into Gao and Takrur, securing its grip over key trade corridors. Their power became so great that foreign kingdoms took notice. A new tradition soon emerged. The Mansas of Mali began making the hajj, the sacred pilgrimage to Mecca. This custom was first undertaken by Wali, Sundiata's son and successor, whose rule not only upheld his father's legacy, but strengthened it. Under his reign, Mali seized control of the great trade cities of Walata and Timbuktu, securing its place as the beating heart of West African commerce and culture. Mali was no longer just a rising empire. It was a force that would shape the world. Mali's golden age was not without its shadows. After Mansa Wali's 20-year reign, the empire was thrown into chaos. His two adoptive brothers vied for the throne, each ruling briefly before descending into tyranny. What followed was a string of fleeting rulers, their fates tied to the power struggles between the Gbara, which sought to uphold Sundiata's legacy, and the Dozo guilds, who longed for a return to pre-Islamic traditions. As factionalism deepened, Mali's grip on its territories weakened. But at the turn of the 13th century, an unlikely figure emerged. A soldier of humble origins, once a conspirator in the palace coups, now a ruler in his own right. He was Mansa Sakura, the 6th emperor of Mali, and under his rule, the empire was reborn. Sakura crushed internal dissent and expanded Mali beyond its previous bounds, proving that power was not just inherited but earned. He sought to strengthen economic ties with the Muslim world, cementing Mali's place in global trade. But fate was cruel. On his return journey from Hajj, he was ambushed and killed in the desert. Without his firm hand, Mali drifted once more into instability. His successors failed to match his strength, and the empire seemed poised for decline. But then, in 1312, a ruler would rise, one who would take Mali to its greatest heights. His name was Mansa Musa. Thank you for joining us on this journey through history. If you found this story as captivating as we did, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.